All right, here are my NFL power rankings heading into week 5. Nothing changes at the bottom. Number 32, the Patriots. Number 31, you had the Carolina Panthers. I mean, they kept it close to the Bengals. Unfortunately, they could not, they couldn't put it away. I mean, they couldn't complete the comeback, but they were a little pesty and they gave the Bengals a little bit of a run for the money towards the end there. But at the end of the day, this Panthers team has looked better. Since benching Bryce Young, Andy Dalton, these weapons, the defense is, it's not a great team, but considering they have a functional QB, they've looked better. The weapons work. I like Canales' system, but they're still going to move down one spot after a loss to the Bengals. It was an all right game for them considering who the Panthers are, and considering it's past week 3 and the Bengals typically start getting things going, and they did versus the Panthers, but the Panthers moved down one spot. Jaguars are moving down 3 spot after a competitive game versus the Texans. You just have to move down because there's a couple other teams that just kind of moved up, like the Raiders. And just how bad of a performance it was, you really had to move down that much. I mean, really bad start to the year, 0-4, I think it is. Yeah, they've not been good, man. Trevor Lawrence has looked bad. The offense has been anemic. Bad coaching and really, really bad play call. Why call a QB draw 4th and goal? That was one of the most ridiculous play calls I've ever seen. Not just this season so far, but that I've ever seen. Jaguars, not a good football team. Don't really have too much of an offense. I do, I think their defense finally showed up a little bit, and I do think they have a decent defense, but down 3 spots. Disappointing that they couldn't pull off the upset and get their first win of the season. The Dolphins are down 10. I mean, you just got completely outplayed by the Titans, man. I mean, if the Dolphins had Tua, they would be much higher. They would be a much better football team. Tua is that good of a quarterback. A lot of people don't think, there are people that think that Tua is all right or not a good quarterback. I think they're crazy, and you're seeing it just how poorly, just how poor the offense has looked without him. I mean, Tyler Huntley is all right. He's a good backup, but he's no Tua. He's not an NFL starter. It's just that the Dolphins, man, I mean, they looked horrible. Bad defense. Yeah, it was bad defense. There are times where the defense has looked better, like versus the Seahawks. I thought it looked better, but this week versus the Titans, no, you looked really bad. I mean, you're doing all right against Will Levis, but the Mason Rudolph came out, and Mason Rudolph really didn't have too many issues with your defense. He looked all right. But Dolphins down 10 spot, number 29. Bottom 5 team. Didn't think I'd see this year. I thought Dolphins would have been a solid football team. Not as good as last year, but the injury to Tua and, the offensive line issues. The defense has their problems. Yeah, the Dolphins moving down to 29, not looking good. 28, you have the Raiders moving up 3 spots. Nice close win versus the Browns. I mean, they were beat up, and they found a way to win this football game against a really good defense. That their defensive line showed up, but the Browns' offensive line is just horrible, horrible, horrible. Really just pressure on Watson all day long. And Watson isn't really getting much help, but you can't take this win away from the Raiders. They're just moving up 3 spots because the other teams, they had to move ahead of the other teams, man. They really had to. I mean, they beat the Ravens. The Raiders have a couple wins under their belt, the Raiders have a couple wins under their belt, but I still don't see this Raiders team as a great football team. If they continue to win, they'll rise. Cardinals moving down 7 spots. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, everything was looking all right in the first quarter. I mean, the defense was playing all right. They were giving good effort. The offense, I mean, the game was all right in the first quarter, but after that, it was just completely downhill. The defense looked horrible. The offense looked horrible. Kyler Murray has been one of the better quarterbacks within the first couple weeks of this season, believe it or not, but did not look good this game. And credit to the Commanders, but the Cardinals just looked like absolute dog crap, so they're down 7 spots. I mean, is this a team that looked good? Is this an perfect example of a team that looked good within the first couple of weeks? And now, they're starting to come back down to earth. Even though they didn't have a win to begin with, they play some really tough football teams. But really now maybe they're coming back down to earth. Maybe they're looking like what we expected them to look like. Even worse, maybe, especially after that loss to the Commanders. 26, Titans up 3 spots. I mean, really nice win versus the Dolphins, man. They outplayed the Dolphins this entire football game. Will Levis went out. Mason Rudolph came in, and the offense looked much better. It still sounds like that Will Levis is going to come back and play, if he's healthy. But I think they should just ride out with Mason Rudolph because the offense looked that much better with him compared to Levis. Levis is just, he makes some really nice throws, man, but then, he's too inconsistent. He doesn't see the field well. Haven't been a fan of Levis. Doesn't seem like a really good quarterback, if you ask me. But yeah, I mean, the Titans defense showed up. This is a defense that I expected to see from the get-go. It's nice to see their defense show up. I knew that the Titans had a good defense. It's just a matter of maybe when it's going to start looking down like that. I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to say they had an easy matchup. Even though the quarterback situation wasn't there for the Dolphins, they still have some really good weapons that you have to contain and you have to tackle quick. Otherwise, they're going to burn you, and otherwise they're going to make plays and they're going to give you a hard time. But, the Titans, if you're not careful, they'll score big plays no matter who the quarterback is. I'm sorry, I was yawning as I was trying to talk. But, yeah. All right, let's move on. See who we got next. We got the Browns at 25. They're down one spot. Yeah, disappointing outing versus the Raiders, man. I mean, maybe they should have been moved down more. I still think they're an all right football team. I mean, they have a decent defense. Deshaun Watson has looked all right. He's just not getting much help from the rest of the team. The offensive line, yikes. Yeah, that offensive line looks absolutely horrible. There's no communication. Too many free blockers, too many free defenders coming in, and Watson has no time to throw, man. Yeah, and if your offensive line is that bad, you're not going to be able to run the football, and they cannot, and they struggled to run the football against the Raiders. And the Raiders were beat up too. This should have been a game where the Browns, this should have been a winnable game for the Browns, but no, they could not beat the Raiders. So Browns, yeah, they dropped one spot. Really disappointing game. Very fortunate they didn't drop more. But I didn't feel the need to move the other teams above them. Giants are down one spot. I mean, this is a football team that is just full of missed opportunities. I mean, the red zone defense was bad. You couldn't finish drives. Malik Neighbors looked good, man, but then the defense, they did good against the run. I thought the defense had an all right day. But unfortunately, it was the offense. Daniel Jones just can't make certain throws. The offensive line, I thought, looked better in this game. I thought, but you still couldn't really run the football too well. But the Giants, yeah, you're down one spot. Really disappointing game. I think it was, yeah, if I remember correctly, it was all field goals. Unfortunately, the Bears just haven't, or the Giants just, you're a couple plays away from having a much better record. But there are so many missed opportunities and so many good plays and just stuff left out in the field. Very sloppy football is what I'm getting to. It's disappointing, and this Giants team could have a much better record. They could, just be looking like a much better football team, but there's too many missed opportunities and there's too many plays left out there on the field. And the defense is great. The defensive line is incredible. Deontay Banks struggled against, CeeDee Lamb a little bit, but it's CeeDee Lamb. He's very good. You're bound to give up a couple catches to him, but it's just unfortunate that the offense can't get anything going. Offensive line looked better this game, like I said, but at the end of the day, Daniel Jones can't make the throws. He can't. He can't put on the money. And he's not consistent. He overthrows a lot, or the accuracy just isn't there. So Giants, who moved down one spot, really disappointing in my opinion. They had a shot to win that game. They had a shot, they had a chance. They couldn't. All right, Bears up 5 spots. This feels like a lot, especially beating. You did beat, but let me explain myself a little bit. The Bear and it does seem like a lot. It is a lot moving up some over these other teams. I was just raving out about the Giants. Are the Bears better than the Giants? I don't know, but after this week, they were. They took advantage of some opportunities. They took advantage of a Rams team that was injured, that was really beat up. Out some of their best weapons. Yeah, Caleb Williams had an all right day. Felt like they ran the ball all right as well. So Bears, they had a really good week, and the Rams are a decent football team. You got a really good quarterback. Unfortunately, the Rams are just really beat up. And since not having Aaron Donald, the defensive line has not been that good. They lost a couple pieces throughout the offseason as well, but Rams defensive line has not been good, has not been able to get pressure. And then, you look at the rest of the team, they're just so beat up. But Bears, let's give the Bears a credit. Give the Bears a credit. They beat the Rams. A team that beat the Niners a couple weeks ago, that beat a couple of good teams. And, the Bears went ahead, they beat them. Caleb Williams looked all right. Took advantage of a couple of opportunities this game. And, before you know it, the Bears are up 5 spots in my power rankings. I mean, they earned it. They beat a Rams team that is decent. It's not a bad team. Maybe for how beat up the Rams are, they are a bad football team at the moment. But, regardless, you have, an elite, I would say Matthew Stafford is pretty much an elite. He's a very good quarterback. And, they had a good weekend. The Colts are up 4 spots. The run defense has looked better, but, Anthony Richardson go down hurt. And once Anthony Richardson went down, Colts couldn't really run the football. The offense got a little anemic, got a little disappointing. I mean, Joe Flacco is what he is. And, if you can't challenge the Steelers defense in unique ways, it's going to be difficult to play offense. It doesn't matter who you have on offense. If you can't challenge them in unique ways like Anthony Richardson could, I mean, that's what's going to happen when you have a quarterback like Joe Flacco. He can't move. He's got bricks for feet, man. So, but I mean, the Colts, they barely survived the Steelers. Got very fortunate that Fields mishandled a couple snaps in this game, especially late in the game. Biggest time in the game. Fields mishandled a snap and then made it like 3rd and 22. Otherwise, it seemed like that the Steelers were going to find a way to win this football game. But ultimately, the Colts do win the football game. They hold on to dear life towards the end. So they're up 4 spots. They beat an undefeated Steelers team. Bengals are up 4 spots, man. I mean, pretty good game against the Carolina Panthers. They did let the Panthers stick around, so that's a little interesting. But I mean, they're heading in the right direction. They get their first win. So just going to leave it at that, and they move up 4 spots. I do expect them to continue to move up these rankings as the year goes on. Bengals always start slow. And, Cam Taylor-Britt really had a bad start to this game. Really was just, I don't know what Cam Britt was doing this game, but he had a rough game. He did. But the Bengals, as a team, they came together. Joe Burrow, Chase, T. Higgins had a good day. But, yeah, the Bengals, they're going to continue to improve. The defense is going to get better as the year goes on. The offense is going to continue to get better. And I think they should give Chase Brown the ball more over Zach Moss. That's just my opinion. But, yeah, Bengals up 4 spots, good week. Rams really disappointing this past weekend, man. I mean, too many missed opportunities, really bad weekend. I mean, they were really beat up, but nonetheless, you did lose to a Bears team that has not been good. The Bears offense has been very bad, but you let the Bears have a pretty good day on you, and they even ran the ball all right. So not a good week from the Rams, man. So they're down 2 spots. Very fortunate I didn't put them down more, but just don't think the Bengals or the Colts should be moved ahead of them yet. Broncos are moving up 3 spots, man. What a last 2 weeks for the Broncos. I mean, you smoked the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers just smoked the Eagles. The Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield have looked incredible. And then this weekend, you don't smoke the Jets, but you did a damn good job containing this offense. They have a lot of playmakers. And, I mean, Garrett Wilson hasn't looked good at all. He's been really disappointing. But, nonetheless, this Broncos defense is coming alive. Now, the offense is still a little disappointing. But they came through when it mattered most. You know what I mean? So, this Broncos team is getting better as the year goes on. And I expected the Broncos get better as the year goes on. I expected Bo Nix to get better, and I expect him to get better as the year goes on. So the NFL better be on watch for the Broncos. This is a sneaky football team with an elite defense these last 2 weeks. Elite defense. Very good job against the Bucs. Baker Mayfield looked like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Yet versus the Broncos, he looked like he looked horrible. And now Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense has looked pretty good. You made them look silly. So this, and the Broncos the first 2 weeks, they look bad. But it feels like the Broncos are starting to hit some kind of rhythm here, and I think the Broncos are going to continue to win football games and rise up these rankings. They're looking like a good football team, man. So Good signs. Good signs for the Broncos. Good signs for Bo Nix and the defense. Bo Nix looking better and better every week. Although, it was a tough matchup versus the Jets defense. It for sure was. But, hey, he did it when it mattered most. This Broncos offense was led to score points when it mattered most. So, up 3 spots. Chargers are down 2 spots. I mean, they kept it close against the Chiefs, man. But I will say the Chargers, dude, I mean, they were really injured going into this game. They're really beat up on a lot of their superstar players. Most of them were hurt. Herbert was even hurt throughout this game. He was limping. He was limping before the game even freaking started, man. I mean, gingerly walking. But the Chargers still put up a good fight against the Chiefs. Unfortunately, the offense couldn't do a little more. It was only a 7-point game, but you still got to be moved down 2 spots because you did lose. And it was disappointing. It was disappointing, but at the same time, it was kind of encouraging to see how well the Chargers played against the Chiefs, one of the better teams in the league, even though they were still really beat up. So it was disappointing, but at the same time, it was encouraging. Because if the Chargers were healthy in this game, could the Chargers have won this football game? It's a real possibility. They had a chance to win this game, and they weren't healthy. They had so many superstar players out. So, very encouraging game from the Chargers. At the same time, disappointing because you did lose. It was a close game. The Cowboys, the run defense looked better this week. I felt like there were a lot of missed opportunities once again for the Cowboys. I mean, it feels like it's a Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb show. That's kind of the big issue. You need other people to step up. I don't know who else has stepped up. No one has really stepped up so far yet this season. And but you do beat the Giants. You go to the Giants home. You do go ahead and beat them in MetLife Stadium. They're home prime time, but I feel like this game was a lot closer than it should have been. I mean, the Cowboys have a decent football team, but there are quite a few holes in this team this year. Although they did better against the run this week, will it be able to hold up versus better teams and better offensive lines and better run games in the future, like the Eagles and Saquon Barkley? I don't know. Speaking of the Eagles and Saquon Barkley, really bad game versus the Buccaneers. They looked like total dog crap. Jalen Hurts looked bad. The offense looked bad. It felt like at one point the Eagles were starting to get something going and looking to try and be pesky and stay in this game. But at the end of the day, they just didn't have enough firepower. They were really injured too. I will give them that. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson is probably 3 of their best offensive players out right there. But, unfortunately, the Bucs were beat up too. So you can't really just say it was the Eagles that were beat up. You can't blame that. In the game of football in the NFL, we say next man up, and AJ Brown, Devontae Smith are definitely bigger injuries and have a bigger impact than per se the 4th receiver goes down for the game. But nonetheless, the Buccaneers were really beat up in this game as well, but they just looked horrible. Coaching has been bad. The defensive line hasn't looked good. The defense really struggled versus Baker. And Baker's looked really good, but this defense doesn't look like it has gotten better under under what's his name? I'm blanking on the name, but I know it's their new defense coordinator, and he's really well known. I'm just blanking on his name. It's Vic Fangio. I had to look it up quick because it was going to bother me. But yeah, Vic Fangio and his defense has not really worked out so far. It's because they can't really get a pass rush. They can't really get a pass rush going. Really disappointing. But 15, the Steelers moved down 1 spot. I mean, the first quarter, it was looking bad. The Steelers were getting dominated the first quarter. Anthony Richardson, the Colts were just running all over them. Now, when Anthony Richardson went out, the Steelers defense did step up, and they were able to stop their run and just kind of, it makes it that much easier to stop the run because when you have to worry about a quarterback like Anthony Richardson, it makes it that much more difficult to stop the run. The defense is forced to spread out with his big arm too. But Justin Fields and the offense got going a little bit in this game. It felt like they finally had some rhythm, but unfortunately, the biggest moment of the game is when they screwed up the biggest. The mishandle snap multiple times in this game, and then of course the biggest time later in the game, it felt like that the Steelers and Justin Fields were going to go down the field, and it felt like that they were going to win this football game, that drive. But the mishandle of the snap, the bad job at the center, the combination of those two kind of just screwed up that whole drive and all the momentum that they had in the world. So the Steelers are down one spot. Ah, man, they were just so injured. They had so many injuries. That defensive line, the front seven, I think they had like 5 or 6 players out of that game. The defense was really disappointing, but, with that many injuries, it is really difficult. As we were saying before, next man up, everyone has injuries, but, I mean, we talked about the severity of injuries and the importance of them, the impact of 5 of your best guys in the front seven go down. It's going to be a long day. And on top of that, you're playing a physical football team. You're playing a team that wants to run the football. And you're playing a team that wants to play smash mouth football. And the Seahawks defense has been really good so far this season. But unfortunately, they were just down so many players. They were only able to do so much. But the offense was explosive. Geno Smith looked good. Everyone looked good on the offense. Kenneth Walker had 3 touchdowns this drive. Offensive line looked good. I thought that this Seahawks offense was really explosive this game, and no, it was. It's not a matter of if I thought it was or not. It was explosive. Just unfortunate that the defense was as injured as it was, but did lose. Do have to move you down a spot, but still an impressive game for the Seahawks. I'll be honest, it was still an impressive outing. You're in Detroit and you still put up a fight. Saints are down one spot. I mean, that game should not have been as close as it was. I mean, Falcons right next to them. We'll talk about the Falcons at the same time. The Falcons, I mean, they got very fortunate that the Saints, were very sloppy in this game. What was there, a pick 6 and then a score on special teams? So the offense wasn't responsible for many points. I think they scored a lot of field goals. Yeah, they scored so many field goals toward the end there that they won the football game in the last minute. Long field goal. I think that was Young Koo's longest field goal of his career. It was game winner. Couldn't have come at a better time. But the Falcons are really, really fortunate to win this football game. And it was sad that the Saints were in the situation to begin with. But the Saints have to move down one spot, man. I mean, how do you lose that football game? The Falcons' offense didn't score a single touchdown. The red zone defense was awesome. It was great. They did a phenomenal job. Bend but don't break. Falcons' offense was the opposite. They couldn't finish their drives, but I mean they took their points and they eventually took the lead and they won towards the end of the game. The only time the score matters is when that clock hits triple zeros. And the Saints were just so sloppy in the first 2 weeks. This team was like damn near perfect. They weren't sloppy. Derek Carr was looking good. They weren't making those stupid mistakes in special teams and muffing the punt and all that, but no, I don't know. I think they did score an offensive touchdown, but that muff punt was like at the 1 yard line or something. Unless that was a different game that I was watching, because there was a lot of punts that were down at the 1 yard line or very close this past week. But yeah, Falcons up 3, Saints down 1. Just a really, really interesting game. The Falcons. I don't know, man. I don't know. It was just very disappointing that the Saints let the Falcons win this football game when they really shouldn't have. The Saints should have won this football game, but the stupid and sloppy mistakes screwed it up for them. Commanders are up 9 spots, man. What the heck? This is not something that I expected. This is the best team in the NFC East right now. And I don't think there's too much of a question. I mean, the Eagles they've been pretty bad. The Cowboys, they're winning games, but they haven't looked great doing so. Did lose versus the Ravens. You barely beat the Giants, and, you struggled to beat the Giants. Should have won by more. A lot of missed opportunities. The run defense has been bad. A lot of teams have struggled to stop the run, but the Commanders, I mean, they're getting after Murray all day long, and the defense just showed up and played lights out, man. Getting pressure on Kyler Murray, stopping the run really good. And how about Jaden Daniels? That dude is proving me so wrong right now. Proving me so wrong. I did not think that Jaden Daniels was going to be good at the next level. Now, it's still early, but he's looking so good to the point where it's like I was wrong. I was wrong. Jane Daniels looks really good, and this Commanders offense looks really good. When you have a good quarterback, you see how much better it makes your entire football team. And Dan Quinn, this was a good matchup for the Cardinals. I forgot to mention that when I was talking about the Cardinals. This was a good matchup for the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals thrive to beat man coverage. Dan Campbell calls the most man coverage in the league. And the Cardinals are like built to beat man coverage. Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., and all the other speedy guys that have a receiver. And then you have Kyler Murray. That just sounds like a recipe of success versus man coverage. Unfortunately, for the Cardinals, they still couldn't do anything. I mean, that Commanders front was getting so much pressure and disrupting so much that the Cardinals couldn't do anything. And the Commanders just smoked the Cardinals. Like, jeez. But yeah, man, I mean, the Commanders are up 9 spots, playing good, clean football. And you dominate a football team that I didn't think they matched up well against. So they move up 9 spots and move up to number 11, almost top 10. Who would have thought that heading into week 5 of the 2024 NFL season, the Commanders would be at my 11th spot? They've been a really good, damn good football team, man. They beat a couple really good football teams. And, they beat the Bengals. Even though the Bengals are 1-3, the Bengals are a good football team. You still have Joe Burrow. You still have to play Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the Commanders' defense has been good at times. Like I've said, I mean, obviously they only held the Cardinals on 14 points when it was a bad matchup for that defense. It's just I've seen way too many good things to not move them up this high. Brian Robinson has looked really good too. I mean, just really impressed by what I've seen from this team and the Commanders. It's cool to see a different team like the Commanders really showing out this year. And Jaden Daniels just looks phenomenal. The Jets are down 4 spots. I mean, come on, man. Come on. What are we doing? Maybe I'm discrediting the Broncos. Maybe that Broncos team is a really good football team. Well, their defense is. We all know that by now that their defense is very good. Last 2 weeks, they did a phenomenal job against 2 very good offenses. But the Jets, I mean, so disappointing. So disappointing versus the Broncos. You were up. It felt like they were up for the majority of this game. I mean, Bo Nix had -7 rushing or -7 passing yards in that first half, and you still managed to lose. The defense didn't show up when it mattered most. And what's the other thing I was gonna bring up? Garrett Wilson. What's going on with him, man? He has not looked good. Garrett Wilson has not looked good. So hopefully their playmakers can step it up because, Garrett Wilson has not looked good. I mean, versus a really good defense. I mean, the Broncos defense looks incredible. But when you play some other good defenses, like you played the Niners defense early in the year, offense really struggled. So we'll see. We'll see what the Jets have as the season goes on. All right, and then we move on to the Niners. Completely dominated the Patriots. Looking like the Niners that we know. Brock Purdy looking good. This team just looking like they should, man. Versus one of the worst teams in football. The worst team in football to me. You went out there and you dominated them. That was good. Get yourselves right. It was good. It was a get right game. And they did that, so. But they're gonna stay put. Because you did beat the Patriots. You did beat them in a very good fashion, but your resume is still a little wonky right now, so I can't move them up. But the Bucs, I was able to move up 2 spots because they smoked the Eagles, and that game, at one point, it felt like the game was getting a little close, and the game was slipping from the Bucs, but then the Bucs put it away. I mean, Jalen Hurts he has not looked good, and the Eagles were really beat up, but the Bucs were as equally as beat up. They had so many guys on defense out. They've had so many injuries, yet the Buccaneers are the ones that came out on top. They look really good. The coaching is really good. Baker Mayfield's looking good. And the defense, this team isn't even fully healthy, and they're still looking like, a top 10 team in the NFL. So, yeah, good job by the Bucs beating up on the Eagles. So, we're up to the Texans at 7. I mean, the Texans were fortunate to win that game versus the Jaguars. Very fortunate. The Jaguars had some really stupid play calls, and Trevor Lawrence just is not very good. He missed a couple passes versus Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson was open, could have had a touchdown there, but Texans have like a negative 20 point differential at the moment. Not good. And they haven't been able to put football games away against not great teams either. I mean, you look at the teams they play, they don't play any that good of football teams. So, I'm questioning the Texans a little bit right now. The game versus the Colts was kept way too close too long. That game should not have been that close. Defense let Anthony Richardson and the Colts get back in that one. They then kept it really, it was really close against the Bears. Yeah, the Bears have a really good defense, but it still shouldn't have been that close. You let Caleb Williams have a chance to go down and score. Thankfully, he didn't. Otherwise, the Texans would have lost that football game. And then played the Vikings. You got smoked by the Vikings. Now this week, you struggle against the Jaguars, a bad football team. And look at all those teams I just mentioned on my list right here. Jaguars are 30. The Bears are 23. And the Colts are 22. And then the team that you got smoked by were the Vikings, which one of the better teams in the NFL. So I'm worried about the Texans. I'm worried with their ability to put games away and to now beat good football teams, because they've struggled to beat bad football teams. And the one good team they faced, they got smoked. So I'm a little concerned. They have too many good players to be doing this crap. They have, explosive offense. They have so many explosive weapons. You have Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, and of course CJ Stroud. The offensive line is all right, but I just don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on with this team. But yeah, they're staying put at 7. I mean, fortunate to stay here at 7. I didn't move the Bucs up over them, and then the Niners up to 8, and then move them down 2 spots, even though they're I don't know. I just couldn't punish them for winning, but they did play they did play the Jaguars, and they were fortunate to win at that, but they did win. So, yeah, I'm keeping them put at 7, although I'm not thrilled with the Texans. Not thrilled with them lately. So they got to start winning football games convincingly. So Packers are down 1 spot. I mean, first half, it was looking pretty bad. Jordan Love was looking rusty. Jordan Love was looking like crap. The defense looked like crap. They were able to do nothing. Not a thing. The second half, seems like the Packers figured something out. It did very good in defense, stopping Sam Darnold. Those Packers team just flipped the switch the second half, and that's how I think the Packers are going to look the rest of the season. But you did lose. It was a close football game. Jordan Love looked absolutely incredible the second half. And, for having that knee injury and coming back and playing as good as he did, it's difficult to do that. Really difficult. Any knee injury, any injury in general, but the knee injuries especially usually difficult to deal with for quarterbacks. It makes your mechanics sloppy because you're favoring it or good. But I mean, the Packers, man, it's just it's so unfortunate how much they screwed it up in the beginning of the game, but you are down 1 spot. You did lose a football game. If the slaughtering kept going on what happened in the first half, then they would have been moved down a heck of a lot more. But I mean, this is a good football team. In the second half, they showed who they were. Fortunately, couldn't play a full game of football, and you paid playing a really good football team in the Vikings. And yeah, Bills are down 3 spots. I mean, this run defense was, oh my gosh. I mean, Derrick Henry ran for about 200 on you, scored a couple touchdowns. Lamar Jackson ran all over you. I mean, you cannot stop the run. And then the offense was really disappointing. Really, no one could step up for Josh Allen. Allen didn't have his greatest of nights. So you get absolutely dominated by the Ravens. And the Ravens haven't been a dominant football team the first couple weeks. I mean, they lost to the Raiders. They lost to a couple interesting teams. They lost a couple games that you wouldn't expect them to lose, but they did keep all those games really close. But the Bills, they just looked really bad, man. Really, really bad versus the Ravens. So, yeah, not good. The first couple weeks, they looked like one of the most dominant football teams. But last week, they were the ones getting dominated. speaking of dominant football teams, I'm not too sure if the Ravens are in certain ways. Certain weeks they look really good. Like the first couple of weeks, what was going on? What are we doing? Felt like they were trying to pass the football much more than run it. They're trying to win in different ways because when you get to those bigger games late in the year, the playoffs, they tend to struggle in those games, and that's because they can't pass the ball efficiently. If you're forced to pass the ball 30 plus times, it seems like the Ravens struggle. But if they can run now they're starting to run the football more. They're starting to stick with the run, and that is why they've been looking so much better. The last 2 weeks you beat the Cowboys. Cowboys are an interesting team. Their run defense is pretty bad. They've looked like one of the worst run defenses, and the Ravens finally started running, towards the second half of that game, and they put it away. And then versus the Bills, you did what you did best, and you need to continue to do that. And you'll figure out the passing game. You'll figure it out. But your running game right now, you just need to keep spamming that, man. They need to keep running the football. Derrick Henry looks good. The offensive line is doing an incredible job. And that Bills team, that is a good Bills team that they manhandled. Really good Bills team. That Bills team has dominated almost every week. Close game versus the Cardinals in the first week. But really, other than that, they've been a really dominant football team for the most part. So, really good win for the Ravens, and that is why they're up 4 spots. Lions, they took advantage of a beat-up Seahawks team. But their defense didn't look as good. They really struggled. That Seahawks offense was explosive. I feel like, they couldn't get to the quarterback in time. They couldn't get enough pressure on Geno Smith. Really struggling versus some of the better receivers in the league, and Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He's still around, man. He's still around making plays. Like, that Seahawks offense was really explosive. And that defense, that Lions defense is going to have to get that figured out because you play some of these other teams, and you're going to play the Vikings 2 times this year, and then you got to play the Packers twice, and I think they play one of them this weekend. And both of those offenses have been explosive. So, you're going to have to run the football and try and keep those offenses off the field. If this is how your defense is going to look, I'm going to be a little worried about the Lions on the stretch here. But hopefully that was just a 1 week kind of a thing where, hey, the defense was a little off. That Seahawks offense was just so explosive. Really question that Lions defense a little bit now. So hopefully that Lions defense can bounce back. Because you have some really good offenses you have to face in the NFC. And right in your division, Jordan Love, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and then Sam Darnold, who has been an MVP candidate so far this year. So that run defense that defense in general, just better pick it up. Vikings up 1 spot to number 2. If they held what they had in that first half and they kept doing that the second half, I would have had no choice but to put the Vikings up to 1 and have the Chiefs down to 2. But, still, you dominated the Packers. You ran the football like it was no one else's business. Sam Darnold threw 3 or 4 touchdown passes in the first half. Sam Darnold is an MVP candidate, and that is crazy to say in 2024. But Brian Flores has that defense playing really well. But did the Packers figure something out in the second half, though? Did they kind of figure out the blueprint? Did they kind of figure something out? And now that's going to be on tape. Whatever the Packers did, it's going to be on tape. It's going to be on film for other teams to try and replicate. Now, as I always say, there's a difference in knowing what you need to do to beat a team and then being able to do it. 2 totally different things. But Vikings are up 1 spot. Really have looked just phenomenal. Second half versus the Packers, though, a little suspect. Can they evolve their game and not let that happen again? Try and evolve that offense and evolve that defense a little bit. Chiefs, they're at 1. What do you want me to say? They were a little disappointing versus the Chargers. Their point differential is not crazy either. Every game has been pretty close. Every game. And I truly believe that there is a thing as close game fatigue. every single game you have to grind it out, and every single game comes down to the wire. I think there's a fatigue that comes with that every single week. So we're gonna see. I want to see the Chiefs put a full game together, and the Chargers are really beat up too. The Chargers are really beat up, and Justin Herbert was hurting himself as it was. Now the offense didn't look good for the Chargers. That's because the Chiefs' defense is really good, but the Chiefs' offense, they've been going through a lot of adversity. Looks like Rashee Rice is hurt. Weapons going down, a lot of injuries. Travis Kelce hasn't really looked like the Travis Kelce we know. He's getting older himself, but they did win. Not in as dominating fashion, and they haven't been dominant this season so far, but we know Mahomes and the Chiefs, if they really need to, they will turn it up. And so I'm keeping the Chiefs one until I'm given a reason to move them. And the Vikings, they're making a bigger and bigger reason, a more and more they're putting together more of a case to be number one. They could win next weekend and be dominant once again. And then, the Chiefs kind of keep, their game is a little close. We'll see. But these are my power rankings heading into week 5. It's been wonky, man. It's been really wonky. It's different. It's weird. Sam Darnold is an MVP candidate. The Bucs are looking as good as they did last year. I did not know if they will look this good. I mean, the Falcons are looking like a really good football team. The Commanders looking as good as they are. It's been a weird season. It feels really different. I don't know what it is, but this season feels really different, really weird so far. But yeah, here are my power rankings for week 5. You guys let me know what you think. So yeah, if you enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, put the post notification bell on so you don't miss any future videos. This is the JDW Sports Talk Show, signing off.